How's it going, everyone? Welcome. Julier Gonzalez here. Today I'm going to explore now this stuff called Playwright as a way to understand that how this tool fit into our entire pipeline of enterprise UI development. As a way to understand now how you can now provide your skill sets and your ability as a UI specialist to help those companies, whether it's in a startup or some old code base that you inherit that at some point you want to actually needs to make your life as a developer and the business when it comes to maintainability easy for all of them, right? So this maintainability, which is very specific in this case of the software, such as you can think of this like the maintenance that you need to do to your motorcycle or your fridge or your oral health or your well-being are quite different in each one of those domains. So why am I mentioning this? Because similar to that maintenance in all of those stuff that I mentioned is now on the software. And this, according to Steve Kinney, which is the head front-end engineer at Temporal, right? Which at Temporal is an application that you can think of this like Kubernetes, but for applications environment running. Again, the details is something that I owe you the details, but he previously worked at Twilio and among other companies. So he made this particular course, and I'm making this quick overview of how do we get here, especially with Playwright, as a way to understand now why we're doing the stuff that we need to do. So with software, especially when it comes to maintain this large code bases with huge range or with a wide range of contributors, how you can, at least from his perspective and from the industry standard, the tools and the system that we need to put in place to make the code easy to maintain, aka easy to add, do a refactor or a change or a migration without the fear of breaking stuff, or reduce the fear of breaking something to increase the confidence when we ship our code. All right, now because of that, I'm gonna briefly describe is how do we get here on the Playwright, okay? And I can summarize this is on this. This is the Maslow pyramid. Or the pyramid of needs. So Steve Kinney mentioned this as a way to understand what are the things that we need to put in place, what is the infrastructure that we need to set up to help us on each one of those levels to solve more complex, in other words, in this case, to help us to maintain the code bases. So first we need to look at the testing, build, and static systems, okay? And then on top of that is the process that we need to put in place as a way to guarantee the code maintainability, such as code review, design documents and blueprints, and then now the patterns that arise anytime while we're doing this code review, such as hey, how do you put it? The stuff that always happens, this recurring stuff, such as hey, how do we organize the project, or how do we now deal with the concurrency on applications? So what are the abstractions that we need to use? It's like callback, thunk, promise, or generators and iterators, and or the observables with RxJS. And now recently there is something from the Go language that is the CSP, and this is something that I'm still exploring of that, and also how we can maintain the state of application, the state management. So because of that, first we focus is on the system by looking at the testing, the unit testing or the testing system, which is a spectrum. Let me show you here. There's a spectrum here. So which is a spectrum, and where you have now the unit testing, component testing, and E2E. So on the unit testing, this is how you can now check if a function do what it's supposed to do. We'll look at the framework that allows to do this, Jest in JavaScript, and Vite that allows to now, Vitess particularly, is to integrate these two pipelines, the build and the testing, into one particular workflow, into one pipeline. So, but with Jest, we look at what are the most common way to, or what is the greatest hits methods that allows to go with the to be equal, and the to be, what it's doing is to check if this is a primitive value or the object reference, if they point to the same memory address, or and the to equal is to check if the object structure is the same as the another, right? If they have the same property and values, or you have the same property here. Properties and values. So we also look at the to be close to actually use that for point floating numbers. But to be close to see another one, to contain, to see if this element actually now belongs to the collections. So to contain, to be instance of, to throw an error, to or in this case the spec.any, to verify is this the type of that, not the value in itself. Object containing, array containing, and then how can we look at the structure of our test, at least to define is, or to have this discipline. So you have the set of functions, or the setup logic, then your testing logic, and ultimately your assertion. Okay, so far so good, at least based on the experience of Steve Kinney. We also look at how can we handle the async operation using the async and await keyword provided by the language, and then how can we now push this particular test into our own pipeline, in other words, into the build pipeline, using the GitHub Actions from GitHub. So this is now a YAML file, which is yet another markup language that provides you a set of steps that you can define, which runs in parallel by default, based on an event, or in this case a GitHub, a GitHub that is detected, whether it's a PR or you're merging, and this is now run on a runner, no pun intended, that is provided by GitHub, where you what you can run is your test in any of the three OS, so Windows, Mac, and Linux. So we also look at how can we do that, how the pipeline actually works, which is similar of what Jenkins works, and Jenkins is for Java applications. I have my strong feelings about Jenkins, but in any case, it works the way it is. Good. Now we have GitHub Actions locally for us. That was the hard work of a lot of people to actually make that stuff easy for us to define out pipelines for the test and the build. All right, and we can also use some recurring, monotonous, and tedious piece of code known as GitHub Actions. For example, to automate process of pulling the repo into this runner, or setting a setting a tool chain for our build environment. This is useful for React Native applications when you need a lot of the things to be done. So, for example, setting the environment for Android and then for Mac, and then now setting the no environments, define some of the credentials that repo needs to have access to, and then now is install the dependency. There is a lot of stuff going on. So once we look at this part of the build system, okay, and how can we optimize that by using caching mechanism, so in our dependency, because we also can use now caching for artifacts, something that we're going to talk about that later. But the point here is, once we explore is how can we set up this pipeline, this CI/CD process in our repo, we also look at some of the stuff that needs to be considered as a software engineer, someone that is providing value to business, is the security and the compliance. The TLDR of this is that we have now two models in security. We have is the castle and moat and the zero trust policy. So the castle and moat assume that risk can happen outside of the castle, all right? And when the attacker crosses the moat, you're pretty much doomed, right? Or there's some mechanism of how you can now prevent that, but it's very likely that they are going to exploit system vulnerabilities or steal credentials, perform some zero-day attacks, you name it. Now, so zero trust policy, which is a model that was created by some analysts at Gartner, this North American multinational IT consulting firm, back in 2006 and 2008, where they say, hey, you know what? Their clients, Gartner clients, they say, we want a security built in. I don't know how you're going to do that. Figure it out. We don't want layers of security. And that's why they come up with this particular model. Google then later on implement that. And now this is something that a lot of these companies are using. For example, Cloudflare is using now this zero trust policy model. So because now the compelling prices of putting business assets on these cloud vendor providers, and with the risk, of course, of being seized their business assets for all of these top tech company or providers, whether it's Azure or whether it's Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud Run, or Amazon AWS. Okay, but despite that risk, they prefer to actually host their business assets in one of those vendors. And not only that, because now the workforce has become much more effective at a distance, also with the advancements of all of these techniques in technology. So now cloud vendors like Cloudflare needs to find a way to actually solve that particular problem of network accessibility and network security, and that's where they come out with the SASE model. Why I mention this? Because this SASE model, which follow particular principles and techniques such as zero trust policy model, the secure web gateways. In other words, they're going to inspect all of the package that's passing and filtering the URL based on the user credentials. Also, the cloud access secure edge, which is a set of techniques and follow particular principles to guarantee is
threat protections, or threat detection, data protections, observability or visibility, and compliance. There are also techniques that this SASE model actually follow, and that is the next generation of firewall and service as a one, which is pretty interesting concept. The TLDR is that you can have access to this one wide area network as long as you now have the proper credentials to get in here, right? Which is also that aligns to the zero trust policy principle, which say, hey, let's going to continuous monitoring whoever's getting here, and follow the principle of least privilege. Wherever you're gonna give credentials to somebody, and constantly monitoring their device, so to avoid any attackers to do this lateral movement, we're gonna micro-segmentate the network and set now a multi-factor authentication. We're quite familiar with the 2FA, all right, time-based 2FA, all right. But the thing here is that with all of this, different techniques that SASE model is using and principles that follow, for example, from Zero Trust Policy and CASB, this cloud access secure edge, and inside of that, it has now compliance as one of the principles that most follow. We explore briefly the most common the most common compliance, such as the ISO 9001 for quality management service, the ISO 20000, ISO ISC 27001 for information security management systems. This is a set of requirements that those applications must follow. The other is a SOC, System and Organizational Control. This is something that is conducted by the IACPA, which is the American Institute of Certified Public Accountant, and some other industry specific, such as HIPAA for the healthcare, PCC DDS, PCI DDS, Payment Card Industry Data Standards Security, I think is this, another for the banking, so for the Deutsche Bank, for example, the Bundesbank, I think it is, but at least to end the FedRAMP for this is a U.S. regulation for controlling, monitoring, and verify the cloud service providers. Now, I mention all of this because this is part of the understanding of why you are actually doing, how do you fit in this entire system. Okay, so going back to what we really care about, which is looking at the next step of how can we is now providing is maintainability to our code by running his component tests, which is now a nice little wrapper of all of our UI libraries, such as React, Angular, Svelte, Vue. You know, they provide a nice little wrapper, and expose is methods that are and expose convenient methods for querying elements and perform common or do common user interactions, such as key up, typing, scroll. We look at how can we do that. We react, and what is the challenge, especially when you want to test now components that communicate with external services or models, aka that perform side effects. And because of that, well, we look at that, and there are a particularly pattern in React to mock that, or in this case is known as the test provider pattern, right? So you wrap these components by providing is the proper context to this React component using Redux, and then, all right, you now is so your tests are are behaving quite close, quote quote, to the implementation, to the end implementation. So we also look at how can we run is now code coverage, which is just to see how much of your source code is test. It doesn't tell you if your tests actually are that's interesting. It doesn't tell you that if you're testing the right stuff, right? But it tells you is how much of your source code is tested through, well, analyzing is the function statement or the function executions statements, conditional or Boolean statements, the branching or the forking structure. For example, these control structures like if or switch, all right, and ultimately the line of code. So we look at how can we generate those using now vtest, which is behind the scene is Istanbul, or C is using behind the scene is ngc, which is a format is a code coverage reporter, okay, and the output you is a bit of different stuff here, whether it's the a bit of stuff here, whether it's the whether it's in a JSON or HTML or any format that you might need to. And because of that, we look at how can we integrate that in our build setup or in our build system by generating is this report, generate a artifact with that, and then catch that. And then we also look at the accessibility and all that kind of stuff using a particular library that tells you is the known check for all of this. And we also explore is when it comes to mock stuff in your React applications, how important is to mock code that you don't own, aka timers, randomness, some random way of sorting elements on the UI, and the API services. Okay, so for the timers, we look at how can we do that by using is now the fake timers for mocking and stop what it's doing. So the mock is just replacing the function implementation, and a spy is the same as a mock, but for a property on an object. Now, we also explore the way of how do we need to architect our application to make all of these different components easy to test. Again, this is going beyond the scope of today's video, but just to briefly mention is the clean architecture and the hexagon architecture as a way to know what are the things that we need to do, and so on and so forth. Good. Now, then we look at how can we mock is our API calls using now is the MS is using a worker behind the scenes to now testing our API. This, if of course the backend hasn't implemented that yet, but at least to know what is the data that we want to paint on the UI. And finally is this thing that we are most excited in today's video is with Playwright. And how now Playwright is this missing piece that will give us now much more confidence that things won't break behind our back, unlike integration testing. But because integration testing or component testing is something that is far from the implementation, far from the real world, with Playwright, if you write few very well browser-based tests, you can have at least the confidence of doing or that functionality works as expected. However, if something fails, it's quite hard to do some heuristic here. But despite that, we're gonna cover this at least at 20% of things that we need to look to understand what this stuff is all about. And yeah, so this is also something that Matt dashes. This is just how now Steve Kinney have to at least implement this kind of stuff, so on and so forth. So how can we rapidly get some sanity around this code base? So yeah, let's go to look at now this 20% to make our life much more easy to build this kind of things from here. Allegedly, okay, allegedly. Now, so yeah, here we are, Playwright setup. And what is this? Okay. Okay. There you go. So let's get into this. Playwright.
But before we have a second repo for this.
Okay, now I wanna is to write play.
Make a new test file. I mean, I could write this new test file. Do Pokemon spec.
Okay.
Out of the box, it uses spec. Could you change that? Why am I using spec? Because PyTest was looking for test. Right? And so by the file name, Playwright will run the spec files, PyTest will run the test files, and never the twain shall meet. If you don't like spec and you don't have PyTest, I don't do whatever you want. Right? Like, change it to whatever makes you happy. That right now makes me fairly happy as we kind of go through and do our thing. Cool. It's got that base one in there. So let's I'm gonna spin up my app real quick so we can take a look at it. Make sure it works before I start testing it out and I pull the wrong repo. So there are a bunch of different apps that you can choose to test. I basically it's got just dumb stuff to play around in. Right, this is basically my sample playground. Like we're not gonna do everything in here, but if you want to try different things, that's why it's a stupid test notification that vanishes, all sorts of stuff like that. You can as a fun playground. This is my reverse of it. You've got things. It's got file downloads. It's got everything you can probably want. It says input obstacles from before that you can drive, do things with. This is actually the one that has a database and has auth. so you can log in and sign up and like analyze the cookie. So if you want to try out stuff, like again, like if we do a full version of this, so we can go all the way in. This is a Pokemon search, which is one to try out. And you will also notice that the query parameter automatic updates, so I could test stuff like that as well. I had full control of the program. I don't have to use JSDOM or anything along those lines. I can see stuff. It's like a
You have full
full-on
control
small-
of the browser.
I think some like CQs you can use. You can get facts about dogs, right? So if you want to sell out different networks, you can play, put these on thing. You can write to the code. All the things are things you can test in Playwright. We're obviously going to do all those. My goal today is to show you how you might weaponize this tool to get as much sanity around the code base as you possibly can, as quickly as possible.
Weaponize this.
We'll go through like writing a test real quick, and then I will show you that for our purposes, when it comes to the theme of our time together, we're not going to write them in test. And I will show you why I think that for getting sanity in the code base, I am now thinking that maybe I should just open the workshop with this. But then it would make everything else less fun. So this feels like a crescendo. Cool. So let's go ahead and like kind of look at some of the differences here. Your test and expect, this one comes from Playwright test instead of iTest. You don't have a describe because it's test.describe, does the same thing. Grab those and we will test. It has
This is to write your test here.
I don't think so. Yeah, now I know that because I found it. Expected something to ask my question.
Test
It's
it.
like the things that you just do, and then when you're like preparing for these things, what questions are people going to ask me? Input field for searching for Pokemons. Cool, and that's an async function. Also, like in the other repo, I gave you some code snippets, so you don't have to do stuff like that. You still, there's a hidden treat in the VS Code directory. It has an input. Pokemons. Awesome. I should have actually called Pokemons. So that's this other. Here we go. Awesome. So like, what will we seek to do here? Let's write a simple test. And so first thing we want to do is, should I put the base URL in? It's one of those things where I'm like going where the spirit takes me. Did I set a base URL? I did. Look at me go. Awesome. So we'll start with like await page.goto / Pokemon search.
But you need to get the page from
Right.
that.
That's an argument that's passing.
That's an
here.
argument that is passing here.
There are no globals to speak of. And like, honestly, for a smoke test, like, did your server start up at all? Right. Cool. And then we can go that we can go ahead. I can run it. We did have that failing test in there intentionally. That was what was hanging out for those 30 seconds. It's because I literally had that test where I tried to make it down. So we'll go ahead and get it done. Let's get that off. Cool. I wonder. That's why I started breaking here before. Yeah. Okay. Cool. This works better if you have more than one monitor. Let's see, because everything's failing me at this point. But let's take a look. So yeah, you can hover
So
over
the great thing of this is that now the browser is
what the selector
still running.
is. The other real
So you can
thing
have access to the browser.
Is I wonder, because I got some weird highlighting on the way. In this case as well. Can't look at it anymore. Sure. I can do page.get by role, and I can do like input button, something like that. One thing, things are being weird for me now was actually as I was typing earlier, it would like highlight like the thing in the browser as I was typing it, so I get like the visual feedback as well. Just you get my test ID search. So let's kind of show what this would look like. Page. Oh yeah, there you can see it, right? I'm just typing, and it knows like it's highlighting that for me based on where my cursor is in VS Code. If I have a matching selector, it shows it for me in Chrome. And that, I should not be that amused by something that simple.
I am amazed
Right? And so I've got that.
by something that is simple.
and
Yeah,
it'll show it to me.
I'm
Now,
amazed for how.
So the integration is super important. What I am trying to kind of iterate towards is showing how we can use this to get like a lot of like sensibility around stuff. So just to show you real quick, I can also like grab this. You can see like that works, and you can even see like what selector matched it. Like a partial match in this case on the placeholder did get it for me. So like little changes shouldn't break your test. Like Playwright, more so than testing library, is built to be somewhat resilient despite the struggle bus that I just wrote on for a little bit with the plugin having an inherent board running. But for whatever I'm running, I get that visual feedback as I'm moving through the code, what I have and stuff along those lines. So for instance, like we could do something with whatever one say I want. I'm gonna just kind of move this a little bit so you can see. So I've got the search input. I can take that and I can then like say like, oh wait, and we should do search input dot type, and we'll do Pika, and we'll do page get by role, look for a link. And look at the background. Look at the background.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm like, what was it again? Like, I get all of the help. Probably moving my cursor while it ruins it. You have to trust that, like, on a bigger monitor or like 2 screens, it's pretty good. Get roll by link. Let's make that happen again.
No, I won't trigger that.
Now it's going to tell me. We'll do name. Pikachu. Cool. And do I hit that button again and have it fail me? Oh my god. Yeah. Unclear versus a restart, what's going to happen there. If I have to do that, I will do it quickly so that we can kind of like pull this train to the station. But let's see if I can kind of get some main point without that. It's like one of those things, 60% of the time it works every time. But I probably have like some other errand process on some process ID that, other than a restart, nobody wants to watch me. But we can also run that test, and I'm going to turn off with the. I will get an error if I try to run the test, and I want to show you that error. MPX Playwright test. It's going to yell at me that something is running on that port, and it's going to say, hey, if that's cool with you, and you don't want to make sure that we're the only thing on that port, you can have this setting to reuse existing server. It's true. I use this a lot because I'm developing, and I like don't want it, like that's really great for like CI/CD. I spin it up, I want to run it, but like if I have one running, just use that one, and so I will do that. We'll pop that setting here as well. Cool. And now I should be able to run the thing, and we'll run it across all them. And 3 passed, and everything is good. Right?
The other is recording tests.
As we showed before, I can go and like pick something here as well, and like get that, and we'll put it on my clipboard for me to use. That is great, and then I can see the visual feedback. But on the theme, because again, like I said before, like I think that like Playwright is probably a course in of itself, or in itself. But in terms of like, I need sanity around my app because I'm tired of getting paged, and I need to do this big refactor, and I need to put some of this stuff in place ASAP, right? And I understand the trade-offs, we need to test all the way through. I'm here for it. I think one of the most powerful things that you can do with this is you've got record at cursor and record new. Let's do record new. I don't know what cursor is. And it spins up the browser. We will go to localhost 3000. And like, would you want to maybe just change that to the slash? Right, you got the base URL set. There are little things you might want to tweak, but go in here, click on that, type in we want a Charizard, is that what we wanted before? Charizard.
Holy hell.
That. We'll see it rendered on the page. There's not a lot of other stuff to click, so let's go over to secret menu. You could literally spin this up, just drive through your entire app in one mega test.
Holy French toast, bro.
KFC, this, by the way, when I talk about like things I do on Sugar Book Community Workshop, finding a data set for all of the secret menu items at all the fast food restaurants, and then massaging and parsing that data into a table, and then building stupid rating sliders is a thing that I did. Right, because that was the best use of my time. And yeah, the fact that there's stable div scroll, that didn't happen on its own. And
holy French though.
Let's go sign up for an account. I made so many great email addresses. And I get that feedback of what everything is. Let's say live coding, because there's definitely no way that I did that earlier, at gmail.com.
Holy French toast. But it's because...
Table div accessible?
This is mostly, I wonder if table div accessible. The best part is I was talking, I don't even remember what password I used, but luckily, if you look over to the right, this entire test is being recorded. So I could theoretically thing. Okay, there's some stuff in the database over here. I'd be really like to see what I'm doing here. So we can go ahead. I can write a new thing, which is restarting computers is the best. Enter. There it is. This is in case I wanted to tweet and I have something stupid to say. I can just write it in this app, and everything's fine. Update it. Give maybe an exclamation point or two. But maybe not. Like I found a bug in the app, right? We go close out then. We will sign out. Whatever you want. I think I've made my point. So then we can go back here and we can hit cancel.
And by the time that is running this,
what you see is possibly the ramblings of a madman. But in a lot of ways, effectively attested does cover a lot of my app.
completely,
Right?
man.
And gives me, at least in terms of like, hey, is this thing doing the thing? Like, is it running? Can I navigate around? Am I seeing the things I'm supposed to see? Right? Would I do that much without maybe pausing and like doing a few expectations every once in a while? I probably would. There are things that you need to fill in. Like in my experience, and it might just be like my bad coding, but I had to change some of these to type. I would probably. It also helps me figure out where my locators are less than ideal. That's because there should be a dash in between, right? So also useful. Also like a great sanity check. I didn't know that I made that move. You would have watched me try to type and not have it not work. You know, I changed this to just a slash, so on and so forth. You know, all sorts of stuff. There was just random stuff that I didn't really know what password I was going to use. There we go.
I noticed you had deleted one of your passwords. Looks like that line 19 there, right where the cursor meta plus A. Is that like a delete?
That's command out.
Okay.
Yeah. Right.
And then you just type over.
Yeah. Yeah. I was talking. I was like, I wonder how many letters I.
In there, right where the cursor meta plus A. Is that like a delete?
That's command out.
Okay.
Yeah. Right.
And then you just type over.
Yeah. Yeah. I was talking. I was like, I wonder how many letters I hit. I don't remember. Let me start over. Right. So yeah, you would probably do some cleaning up here. But in terms of like verifying all this stuff, can you navigate and stuff along those lines? Like, this will get you a lot of bang for a relatively small buck, relatively quickly. And since it will go anywhere on the internet if you drive the browser, you can use that information for anything you want. And even with GitHub workflows, you can schedule them. I don't know when tickets go on sale. You know, whatever. All sorts of stuff that you can do. Yes.
How would you do this if you're not using VS Code?
Yeah, you definitely don't have to do the VS Code plugin. The nice part is like there's the record new, which will make a new file cursor. These are all protocols in actually like Playwright and driving Chromium itself. You know, a lot of that stuff is cool. There are reasons why you might not want to do it from here, other than the fact that like I said before, this extension is somewhat wonderful, but also it did cause me to have to restart my computer because I had some errant process that I couldn't kill off. So if you want to do it from the command line, you can do npx playwright.
So call the no binaries. So call the no executable command here.
And this will kind of start up the Playwright Inspector, which will look somewhat similar with a record button that you can turn off and on.
And then you're going to generate is that test like that.
Record. I can go here. I can navigate around. I can do some things. Modal.
This is something powerful, bro. But this is for browser automation.
Copy this. The other thing is this will set up a Playwright test for you. Also Playwright supports these other languages that I don't care about.
On the JS
You can
Python.
also, if you want to actually just run it as a script that controls a browser, you can switch it to library. So now I don't care
It's also for Node.js, Python, and a JS. Oh, and
you
I
can also, if you
get
want to
it.
actually just run it as a script that controls a browser, you can switch it to library, and this will now be like a node package you can do like node whatever, and it will do all this stuff for you for various non-script reasons. Switch it to library. Playwright input round. Turn off and start up Playwright off. And code gen. And this will kind of start off Playwright Inspector, which will look somewhat similar with a record.
Holy moly. Holy F, bro. Okay, that you have to be careful with when you are trying to add this kind of stuff. Because what is the problem that you want to solve here, is that your tests are resembling close to what the end user expects to. And this is this kind of app that are Playwright.
Playwright tests, generating tests, and how to record a test for that, and record at cursor, or generating tests with Playwright Inspector by doing the code gen. And the emulation. Again, what is the problem that this tried to solve? Okay. Because it's going to generate all of this. And I get it why. Okay, this is from Microsoft. Holy crap. It's a framework for web testing and automation. Capability, resilient, no flaky test, no trade-off, no trade-off. It's always a trade-off, bro. Multiple everything, trust events, full isolation, fast execution, powerful tooling, code gen, Playwright Inspector, and trace viewer. Code generator. With this one, test generator, generate tests in VS Code for this. So while recording is doing this. Holy moly. I think that's quite powerful when it comes to know what this stuff is doing, what it can help you to do that. Integration testing. Holy moly, bro. So you can say, hey, I want to npm, I want you to run this binary, I want you to run this node command locally if you have that, or fire up an HTTP request to call that from the remote repository, the npm registry. So npmx is doing this. Playwright, Jesus, what amount of dyslexia. Playwright is Playwright, exactly. Playwright, and you do now this. npm Playwright. And you do is now the code gen, right? As you can see, the recording. By the time you want to navigate to that, you have to localhost. I don't think I have that. Okay, I have that. Interesting.
Button. We'll go ahead, like, get everything where I want. I can hit record. I can go here. I can now.
Oh my god, that's pornographic. Yeah, but I don't have this already running, so let me now create this one here. npmx Playwright, yes. Yeah, but I want to is, now this is bash. Please generate is a shell here. Yes. Okay. I want to see the package JSON here. Package JSON star. npm star. npm def. Okay. Grab. npmx def. yes. Oh, wait a single moment. Is npnx run def? Okay, you think you're funny? npnx def. Exactly. So npm run def. Exactly why you don't want to do this. npm run def. npm run def. Alright, so now the server is there. As you can see, we're able to load this, and you get now this one. And this is when you start, this is when you say, hey, I want you to now start the recording here. You say record, you're gonna enter here in the secret menu, and then increase that to maximum that. Deselect this 2, 3, 4. Oh, I haven't. Okay. So now that I'm getting here at the application level, so I can start the recording. Say, hey, go to the secret menu. You do that. Then, even though it tells you now the locator name, where to buy, and all that kind of stuff. Perhaps you're not able to see that, and that's fine. And then you want to go to the bucket search and say bucket, right? Say hit Bulbasaur. That's right. You can inspect this, and then you can do some facts, dog facts. Say fetch me 5. Right, I get this. Stopwatch. Oh, stopwatch doesn't. Stopwatch. This one. So then after that, now click that. Okay. And echo chamber. Interesting. This actually doesn't work. No problem. But you can actually then do all of this, and by the time that is done, you say, hey, stop that, and you can actually have this huge code generation for that. That was a lot. That was a lot, my friend. Holy moly, bro. Can you just rerun this? And then define the different that you need to JSON, Net, Python, Java, GUnit. Holy moly, bro. Let me actually take a screenshot of this. This is massive. This is massive, bro. This is massive, bro. Okay, let me, you know what? Let me do something here. Let me do something here. Exactly, because I don't want it to. Come on, man. What's wrong with you? Oh, it's because here. Okay. Okay, it's because here.